Good morning, Birdman and women, and welcome back to another episode of the Birdman. We're once again camping at Waterfowl Lake, and this is day 3. Let's see how it goes.
And so we did, waking up to the sizzling sound and smell of bacon, a comfort which we would be soon to leave behind in the name of a hike, our first real one of the trip. So, we took our first steps and embarked out across the Mistaya River towards our destination, Chephren Lake. And eventually we made it to the real start of the hike, this little trailhead, which marked the beginning of a 2.4 kilometer journey. And it was here that we started racking on some bird species, including this robin, which I did tell you we'd be seeing more of them. And it's not a bad bird, but it's not exactly the ones I'd want to see, you know? Along with them, though, we gathered some yellow-rumped warblers, and perhaps the most cool bird of the trip yet. This is the brown creeper, one of the most elusive North American forest songbirds. These often overlooked birds may just be overlooked for quite a good reason: their cryptic camouflage, which conceals them completely within the rough, cracked surface of evergreen tree bark. On such trees, this fascinating bird will spiral upwards in search of insect eggs, weevils, beetles, true bugs, leafhoppers, scale insects, and more. This is a stark contrast to perhaps a similar shaped bunch of birds, the nuthatches, but instead these little guys typically climb down the tree head first, so if you're having trouble, upwards is creepers, downwards is nuthatches. As for a closer look at this little guy's appearance though, it is mostly a brown mottled color, which really has a unique beauty to it, and paired with its white underparts and long, slightly downcurved bill, it makes for quite the species. It's also relatively small, fitting in with its fellow nuthatches, chickadees, and wrens, at about 13 centimeters in length and roughly 19 centimeters in wingspan. And if you wish to see it, you're not too poorly off, as this bird is both widespread and common across much of North America, even year-round in a lot of places. It's simply getting eyes on this bird that makes it a little tricky. If you do though, it's certainly good luck, for the forest at least, as the brown creeper is an indicator species and is usually only present in healthy forest ecosystems. Now, when it comes to nesting, these little guys will actually wedge it under loose bark in dead or dying trees. Quite the precarious position. Within the nest though, the female will incubate a clutch of 5 to 6 faintly marked white eggs for approximately 14 to 17 days. After about 15 to 16 days after that, the hatched chicks will fledge, but the parents will still feed them for roughly 2 weeks after that. And finally, this little bird's voice. It is a songbird after all, you know. And luckily, it's quite distinctive, being a high T in both sexes, or a high-pitched trees, these trees, see the trees in the males. It is often too high for even the most attentive of birds to pick up on, though. Take a listen. That's enough dilly-dallying, though. Let's get back on the trail. And so we did, but it wasn't long before we had another stop, but this time not for a bird.
Look at this. Look what we got. I'll put the name of this species right there. In post. Alright, we'll let this little guy go, huh?
Wait, can I hold him?
Okay, you can hold him.
No.
After that little distraction though, we continued on our way through the actually really muddy terrain of the hike, but we pushed through. It was through this stretch of the woods though that I would come across one bird that would seem to be my nemesis for this trip.
Hole in the ground.
Boreal chickadees were their name, and I could never seem to get eyes on them. But I did get eyes on this cool fungus.
It's really cool.
What an alien organism.
Did you hear that lady?
Anyways, we trekked on the honestly beautiful hike, and maybe this is a good time to tell you about our goals and aspirations for this trip, which you should have known already if you watched the first episode, wink wink, nudge nudge. But anyways, there are 3 birds that we were really looking forward to seeing, that being a corvid species that finds its home in the mountains, the American dipper, and some kind of grouse, any kind of grouse. And would you look at that, we're at the lake already, but that's no reason to stop birding, so I was quick to be back in the bushes looking for that elusive boreal chickadee that had been evading me the entire time. Wading chest deep in foliage in this deep mosquito territory, I finally grabbed eyes on my first few species, including this American robin, again, as well as some dark-eyed juncos, both young and old. And eventually my patience paid off as I got eyes on the boreal chickadee I had been looking for, the softer spoken cousin of the black-capped and mountain chickadees. I really love their gray caps. I soon headed down back to the lake though, cause I needed a break, so I perched on a log right by this honestly really beautiful creek. Look at those rapids. But we couldn't stay for forever, so we began our trek back. We had a wonderful time though, and if you ever get the chance to visit Chephren Lake, I would highly recommend it. But before we fully left, the lake was sure to give us one more species to add to our list. Here, between all these twigs and branches, is a Swainson's thrush. This bird is a member of the genus Catharis, a group of birds characterized by their dull yet beautiful coloration and magical ascending flute-like calls. If you were curious, that sounds a bit like this. As for a description of this bird's plumage, it can be identified with its buffy eye ring and face, speckled breast, light underparts, and brown head and back. There's a similar species of thrush known as the Hermit Thrush as well, but can be distinguished as the Hermit Thrush has a reddish-colored tail separate to its brown back. Measurements for this bird go for 18 centimeters in length and 31 centimeters in wingspan. Pretty cool. Anyways, if you want to find the Swainson's thrush, be sure to look in coniferous and mixed forests with dense undergrowth across Canada and the northwestern United States. Within these areas of thick foliage, these birds will rummage for berries and bushes, specifically red ones as they typically reject ones with yellow coloration. I don't exactly know the reason for this, as after some shallow digging online, I turned up, well, nothing. So I'll put out my own little hypothesis, but I might be crazy. So feel free to correct me in the comments, this is a complete shot in the dark, but perhaps the yellow berries contain too many carotenoids that may interfere with this bird's cryptic camouflage? Either that, or the one thing I found is they simply find an easier time locating red berries because they stand out more. Anyways, I got carried away there. This bird's nesting. Swainson's thrushes will nest in the understory somewhere around 3 to 10 feet off the ground. The nest is a typical cup variety, and within, the female will lay roughly 1 to 5 blue to greenish eggs, with reddish or brown speckles, and incubate them for the next 10 to 14 days. The nestling period lasts a similar amount of time. And once fledged, these birds will reach maturity at approximately 1 year of age. Now, it was time for the long trek back. Finally. But not before one more distraction, as we saw an American three-toed woodpecker. Want to know more about those? Watch the last episode. It was pretty epic. Anyways though, we continued on our journey. And it wasn't long after that we eventually crossed the Mastaya River once again. And now we had returned back to camp. Here we dined on some delectable sashimi, but it wasn't long before me and my sister decided to head out to the lower Waterfowl Lake like some days before. Here we cleaned off the thick layer of mud that had accumulated on our boots on the hike. And along with this, we also racked on some bird species, like our thrush friend who came to say hi again, or this Boreal chickadee who just so happened to come out. Perfect. We even got in on some yellow-rumped warbler action, got eyes on some pine siskins, and even a glimpse of that Lincoln sparrow that we saw on day 1. Far off the beach though was a new bird for the trip, the spotted sandpiper. This bird is a common shorebird native to the entirety of North America pretty much, and can even be found wintering as far down as Chile. The spotted sandpiper can be easily found in a variety of habitats, but usually on the shores of lakes, rivers, streams, any kind of body for that matter. In these muddy and wet habitats, this bird will probe and consume midges, mayflies, fly larvae, grasshoppers, beetles, worms, snails, and small crustaceans. But how might one identify this bird? Well, if you don't first hear its high-pitched alarm calls echoing down the shoreline, which sounds a bit like this, then its appearance is rather distinctive with its brown back, speckled breast, orange beak and orange legs, as well as its eye stripe. And even then, it still partakes in a strange yet highly entertaining behavior during which it will bob its tail up and down, a very distinctive trait which makes this bird an easy ID. And finally now, and of course, nesting. Nests of this species will most regularly be built by the water's edge, which consists of a depression in the ground bordered with dead vegetation, woody material, and other such nest construction materials. Inside here, the female will deposit 3 to 5 off-white, pinkish, or pale green speckled brown eggs, which she will incubate for the next 19 to 22 days. Upon hatching, the young will already possess a coat of feathers, have open eyes, and have the ability to begin eating and walking. This kind of offspring is known as precocial, as it can fend for itself immediately after hatching. Now though, let's get back to camping already. And so, me and my sister trekked back to the campsite, where there was dinner waiting for us by the fire. Tonight's meal was chili mixed in with pasta, and it was honestly really good. And then I had a tart for dessert. And just as on the first day, relaxing by the fire became priority number 1. There really isn't anything quite like relaxing by the campfire as the lights of nature go out. But even as the dark encroached around us, we still had room for one more bird encounter, albeit a long-distance one, from loons calling across the lake. But with that out of the way, that marked the end of this episode of The Birdman. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time in the next installment of Waterfowl Lake Camping.